Trevor, over to you, buddy.
G'day. As mentioned, I'm Trevor Walker. I'm a Yuin Gumbaangri man. The Yuin is south of Sydney, and the Gumbaangri people come from Nambucca Heads. It's a pleasure to be here today, and look, we've got perfect weather as you see behind me here at a lovely spot in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, Coogee. Today I'm going to help try and create some imagery for you of how this land looked before all the buildings were here, and our Aboriginal people would have rent the land and used the local land here for a range of purposes, but also how they used the waters and how they read the waters here. So I'm hoping that I can pass on some of the Aboriginal knowledge we have about plants and animals and the ocean and the sea. It's a special place for me as well because I played rugby for the local football team here, Randwick Rugby, and now Oval is Coogee Oval, and we're going to talk about Coogee Oval a little bit later. But as the Randwick Council there, just give me a wave. Yeah. So look, let's start by as we do for our people when we use ochre for a range of reasons. One of the main reasons is for ceremony, special occasions, and I have been told more recently that it's ochre is used to keep away to stop from getting stung while you're walking through the bush as well, which is something new that I found out about. Yeah, so today again, and it's also about being as one with the earth as well. You know, we wear the earth, we're part of the earth. So ochre we put ochre on for that purpose as well. So I'll just start. I've already done a little mix here. And what you'll find is, and it's just basically, we get it from the local area.
That ochre is actually from the back of Clovelly.
And, mix it with a bit of water, and it comes up quite nice. So
it's good for wrinkles too, isn't it, Trev?
Good for the skin, yeah. It's the oldest, as my cousin said, it's the oldest makeup in the world, and it's good for your skin too. So for our Yuin people, we always do a certain way of putting the ochre on. Certainly when we're doing ceremony and for other reasons, we might have different paint-ups as well. But today we're just going to just do a little line across the forehead for today's purposes, and also pay our respects to the local people here, the past and the present, and the future elders and of the local area here.
So, Trev, you're applying that in a line across your forehead. Has that anything to do with any totems here?
Well, it's something that our people would start. Would usually do 3 lines, and it's 3 lines on the arms, and which represents our people on the south coast, the Yuin people. I know the local area here. As we look around, the whale is the totem of the local area, the local people, and you know that over Bondi and over Sutherland Way, we've got carvings in the rocks, and they actually depict the whale, the totem of the local people here. And again, we pay our respects to those people, past and present.
Excellent, Trev. Just while you're there, I'll introduce myself. I'm your cameraman today, so I'll be doing my best. My name's Grant Hyde. I'm a local here. I grew up playing on that Coogee Oval as well. I was playing a different code. I was playing rugby league, but Trevor and I have been mates for a long time, and this area is. I've learned a lot about this area and the colonial history and convict history, so we might talk a bit about that as well. But while we got you there, Trev, I'll just flick you back, mate. Just in regards to this area, Coogee, it's a pretty big gully, isn't it? So how would the place have looked like prior to the white fella coming here?
Yeah, look, we do know that that in the 1700s, prior to to the development of the housing and buildings in this area, that it was a heavily wooded area from up around Randwick at the top of the hill, and we might be able to get a look at that later. But one of the interesting aspects for me of this area is that the diversity in terms of the different landscapes that are here. You know, we've got heavily wooded areas around billabongs, and we'll talk about Coogee Oval being a billabong, and which would have been a great source of food, medicine. A place where Aboriginal people would have visited on a regular basis because of the plentiful food and sustenance they can get from that area. I did actually. I was speaking earlier to the groundsman of Coogee Oval, who was telling me about the water problems that they do have. And one of the interesting points that he did tell me about was when there's a king tide here, the water table lifts, and he reckons the Randwick cricketers get a lot of spin and a lot of swerve out of their bowling from the rising water table. And when they do, when they do get a lot of rain here, you can, when we look at the land, you can see, the lowest parts of the land and where the water would more than likely run, and that's Dolphin Street. And our groundsman at Randwick at Coogee Oval, he mentioned that torrents of water coming down Dolphin Street and pouring into one edge of Coogee Oval. So he had some, and when I told him about the billabong, he said that he understood totally, because they're battling with surface water all the time there whenever there's any rain.
It's actually below sea level, isn't it?
That's correct. There. Yeah, and they have a bit of trouble with salt when the water rises on the king tides, I believe.
We've done some work in Claremont College up Coogee Bay Road. There used to be called Whale Street, and the principal was so proud to show me that there was actually water still flowing through the sandstone from around the top there on that ridge, just surging through underneath the school. And they had to have special plumbing installed to pump that water away. So it's still there and it's still flowing, Trevor, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
So there would have been a lot of game here, yeah?
Oh, look, that's the other thing, that when we've got a billabong, that we know that that's an attraction for animals, birds, all sorts of wildlife. So it's got two purposes, I guess, for Aboriginal people. It becomes a hunting ground as well as a veritable supermarket of food, plants, medicine, and of course fresh water. And that's very important. That's very important to our people. But as we all know, and as I was talking about the diversity in this area, we've got areas of sand dunes and very little vegetation, and then we've got areas of lots of vegetation, water, and we know that this area here was heavily wooded, so we had lots of eucalypt, sclerophyll trees around the waterways. So that means there's lots of tubers and plants to rehydrate, including the water. The eels that are in the water, they're a big source of food. My understanding is for the local people here, the birds and the other animals that that come around. So it's a perfect place for Aboriginal people to have an ambush approach to getting their food.
I recently read that there was a lot of logging that went on in this area in the early colonial days. So they logged it heavily. So that caused a lot of erosion as well. But we might head off for a little bit of a walk. But just before we do that, we got this water down here. We have a look at this beautiful water. Trev, you see that? Everyone knows that up the north there, that stormwater drain. Ladies, I think you've got some old photos of Coogee back in the colonial days, Victorian era photo, showing that stream is still running there. It's running through the beach. So the council would have put that into, would have plumbed that and sent the water out to, here's the two of us here. So, Trev.
Alan, would you like to share that photograph that Grant has mentioned?
Yes, please. If you've got any photos there, that'd be great to put any of those old photos up. Oh, there we go. You can see there that the water's running still there,
Yeah.
Trev, can't you? You can still see the palace there. We've got the pavilion now, or the aquarium. That's still very visible, still here. It's got a few trees in front of it. We'll see that in a moment. But you can see how that water was still, it's pretty much not much has changed there, apart from the buildings there. The sand dunes came up the back there, hey, Trev? You see that there?
Yeah, yeah.
Then we got the pier there, came in bad timing with the Great Depression. Then a massive storm hit. Not a good place to put piers in Sydney beaches. It's not Clovelly in England or Devon or such. We got some heavy swell. You can see that. You see the sand dunes behind there. There's an area that's a higher view of the pier. It got smashed up in the early 1930s. It came about with the arrival of the Great Depression as well, which wasn't good. Also, the thing about Australians, we didn't stay at the beach per se as the English did. The English like to visit the beach and stay there for days. We were day trippers. So once you'd done that pier, done some of those sort of things, even the Wonderland over at Tamarama with the amusement park sort of died off because they weren't having regular visitors. It's mainly Sydney-siders. But you can see how that far went out. Trevor, you've seen the pylons there come into the water when the big swell comes on, don't you?
Yeah.
They still stick out of the ground, don't they?
Yeah, when the sand gets moved, yeah, you see the top of the pylons now and then, and we get some big swell on this beach despite having a bit of a barrier there with Wedding Cake Island. But we'll talk a little bit more about the seas and that, and I think when we get up the top here.
Well, you can see that. Look at that.
But
you can see that stream.
You can see, the freshwater stream running there.
That would have come from Coogee over roughly.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah, there it is. Victorian age. It's amazing how quickly we went from lily white, woolen-clad, non-swimming Englishmen to a beach culture pretty quickly. By the early turn of the last century, we hit the surf pretty quick and fell in love with it all. The terror of the deep and the sharks and such sort of lost its danger, and we started entering the water deeper and deeper. While you're there, Trevor, I'll send you back to you, mate. Just in regards talking about sharks then, we know that there's a fair few around. You could just give us a yarn about that.
Well, look, we don't. Look, I'll let Grant tell the story about the shark attack here. There hasn't been any, my understanding is, but I guess, as we look out to the island, the coast, the structure of the coast, the beach, the shallows over here, I guess as Aboriginal people, what we're seeing opportunities to gather shellfish on the low tides with the low platforms, spearing the fish in the shallows on the high tides. We know from the name of this area that there's a lot of seaweed out there, and when there's big storms, the seaweed gets washed up. Now, there's two types of seaweeds that Aboriginal people, there was a green seaweed that we ate here, and the other seaweed, which is the most common one now, which is and we call it, Grant, the bull. What do you call it these days?
Bull kelp, but we see bull kelp, and we also got the golden kelp as well.
Yeah, that's right. And the bull kelp, look, that was something that Aboriginal people used because it's, I guess, because it's being so wide too, that they were used as to wrap food in to help protect food. And I'd imagine, some of the food we wrapped in the kelp could have been put under the ground. We know that the kelp also was a source of fibre. So it was a source of making cloth or using the fibre for other sources, bags or other uses that the local Aboriginal people, belts and those sorts of things that would have been used. So it was a good source of gathering seaweed on this beach here. The other part, the kelp there's also a kelp that's got medicinal characteristics as well. So it's a type of bush medicine that the kelp is. And we'll talk more about the bush medicine that was around this area a little bit later. But yeah, so the sea was a very important source of food, of medicine for Aboriginal people, and like all of us now, it was a source of recreation for us as well.
Trev, just quickly.
Grant, can I just ask a question?
Yes.
So Uncle Trevor, there's a couple of questions about the ochre. I don't know where it's. One question was like, I thought ochre was yellow in colour. And what is ochre? Where does it come from? Do you get it from around that local area?
Yes, this ochre is from Clovelly, but ochre can come in a number of colours. There's yellow ochre, there's a browny red ochre, and then there's a white ochre. What you'll find is that the reddy and the orange and red coloured ochres are more. They're found more in inland areas and up the top end, and on the coast it's more about our white ochre and then we've got yellow ochre on the coast too. The ochre is basically the rock that's been in water, or it's had water running over it for a long time. As it's like clay. We all know what clay is, and yeah, we find it around mostly we find it around the edges where the water's running out of the bush over the rock and into the ocean.
Yeah, fantastic.
So and it's for us the ochre's base is sandstone. The colours come through with we can see some of if we turn around this side to the northern, we can see some orangey coloured sandstone rocks there, and the different colours through the sandstone. So that would determine the colour of your ochre. But for our people on south of the Yuin, it's mainly this which turns out white in the end.
We might start going for a walk, Trev. Yeah. We'll head, but just in regards, quickly in regards to a lot of the sharks we're talking about. It's a perfect spot for sharks, and we'll walk and talk a bit. So I've seen a lot of sharks here surfing, but apparently they're the grey nurses, Trev?
Yeah, look, there's a number of sharks. We know, this time of the year, the likelihood of when you're fishing is that you're going to probably catch more Port Jackson sharks and shovel-nosed sharks in this area. But however, we do know that our friend the big white and the bronze whalers, a number of different sharks, bull sharks, they're all in this area as well. The landscape, given that there's a lot of reef here, that'll tell us that the wobbegong, that's the area that the wobbegong shark likes to. He hangs around and he gets his food in those reefy parts. So big wobbegongs, Port Jacksons, the white shark, the bull sharks.
So the big predators that come in looking for an easy meal as well. I know a lot of the surf club boys here, and every Australia Day they paddle out to Wedding Cake Island and take a few cases of beer with them. And by the end of the day, it's getting dark. And they said when they're paddling home, there's some big shapes under them. And lucky they got a bit of Dutch courage in them on their return trip, because I know one thing, it'd scare me to death. But there has been shark attacks here. The most famous shark attack was involving a young man named Coogee. 1922, he was swimming up near the surf club, and he was attacked by a shark. They're not sure. They say maybe a juvenile great white, but he was attacked quite savagely. Both arms were torn off him. So the poor boy did eventually die, but two young surf club boys raced into the water to save him, and they dragged him to shore. One of those blokes was named Frank Bow Repairs, and Frank Bow Repair was a champion swimmer, and he was also the man that started Bow Repairs tyres and rubber products. And he, because of his courage, they had a function and they were given £500 each. And with that money, he started Bow Repair Tyres. So the young boy didn't survive, but he started an empire with that cash. But while we're heading up here, we're just heading up towards Dolphin Point here. We've played a lot of rugby on the field down there. Trev, you were a rugby boy. You won the 91 first grade premiership with Randwick. You had some good players in that team, didn't you?
Yeah. We had. I think there was 11 current or ex-Wallabies in that football team, including David Campese, Yuin McKenzie. There was Simon Poitevin. Yeah, we had
Phil Kearns.
Phil Kearns. We had a strong club back in those days. Yeah.
And your brother was
My brother. Yeah.
your brother was an ex-Wallaby, as in Lloyd Walker.
Yes.
So there was royalty there. There was no Ellas in there at that game.
No, not in that game.
That's a bit of a shame. Imagine you would have won by more if Barry Ellas were there as well.
Yeah, probably.
That's
Hey, Grant.
I played a lot of rugby league. Yes.
I love
Got any
football.
questions there?
Yeah, we have. So
Yeah, let's
just-
while
there's a
we're
couple of
walking, we're just
questions.
going to get to some spots.
yeah, so a question from Christina. I read there used to be rock carvings of fish somewhere in Coogee, but they were eroded away. Do you know where or what they were?
Look, my understanding is, I don't know the exact position or place of those carvings. What we do tend to see here in Sydney, and Gibbon Point's an example, and Bondi North Bondi as an example, is the carvings tend to be high up close to the ocean. So I wonder whether those carvings might be somewhere close to the rock, to the water on one of the rock edges. There could be a number of places where it could be. I do know, however, that there's carvings that are right through the suburbs here. Quite a few years ago, a non-Aboriginal friend of mine who works in the construction industry was in the backyard of a place in Rose Bay, and they found the carvings there. Unfortunately, those carvings were taken away and destroyed. But so I think perhaps in people's backyards and definitely on these points as we walk around near Wiley's Baths.
They could be under the.
They could be under the grass.
Under grass, yeah. Backyards. We're heading around to Dolphin Point here. We're just going to pay tribute to those poor people that lost their lives in Bali. We also have here, I'll just switch this over. We've got the, this is where the Virgin Mary apparition appeared, and it's still being acknowledged to this day. It happened, I think, in the 90s. The shape of the fence and the shadows and the plants and that, it looked like the Virgin Mary's appearance. So we'll claim a miracle there for Randwick Council. But I went to a Catholic school, and Mary was our girl. Waverley College, called Our Lady's Mount, actually. Now we just quickly go into the Dolphin just quickly here before. This beautiful point here was once where Wiley's Baths was. I trained here many times as a young man, but just here we look at the monument here in memory of these people. I played a football against a lot of these boys from the Coogee Dolphins, and it was our team was supposed, we were Paddington Colts, we were supposed to be there in Bali with them that weekend, and fate would have it that our sponsorship money didn't arrive, and it saved our souls by the luck of the good Lord, I say. But we continue to remember them to this day, and every year there's a memorial to it, and so it should be. So Trev, we'll just have a look out here. We're looking over to Wiley's Baths, and as you said, it's perfect place to be fishing, and looking for food and abalone, a lot of abalone, lobsters, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Around especially the Christmas big tides, it's ideal conditions. You don't want any swell, of course, but it was not unusual for Aboriginal people to we check the moon, of course, to check the tides, and on the low tides, to to go around the rock platforms and to pick off shellfish, abalone, you know, the lobsters, any other periwinkles and other conchs and other shellfish, which are, you know, beautiful eating, as we all know.
Just while we're here, mate, I can see a plant here that one of your best. We'll just have a quick look over this. Mate, it's starting to go into bloom too, these ones. One of our favourites. Hey, Trev, do you want to tell us a bit about Lamandra longiflorus?
Yeah, okay.
I think that's the term.
So, again, this plant would have been, this is the Lamandra plant. This plant you know, can be found all over Sydney. We've all seen it, and some of us have probably cut our fingers or whatever from the blades of the leaves of the Lamandra. You know, multi-purpose, this plant too. You know, we can pull a plant out and, you know,
The thing is, snakes like it in there, don't they?
yeah, that's right. Not a good place because red-bellied black snakes love sitting in this. But, you know, like I was saying, the tubers, or they're known as tubers, you know, good for rehydrating. You know, you just chew on the end. There's a bit of a flavour to it too. But the other aspect of this plant, which is really important for us, is the seed that comes out of this section here. Now, still, this is a bit young, but when that seed is in full bloom, we grind that down.
That's your weed, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's our bread. Yeah, so that's what makes our damper. Well, that's one plant.
Yeah, it's not damper, it's dungar, isn't it?
Yeah, and dungar is the word we use for it. Yeah,
And,
that's
where the English couldn't get their tongue around dungar, and we believe that's where
where damper may have come from. Yeah, that's right. But you know, a plant that's everywhere around this area, all over New South Wales and on the coastline too. Want me to show these other two?
Yeah, got some nice plants there. We've got some bush tucker actually, so we have a good look at these while you're there. Sorry, mate.
So while we're looking at that plant, I just wanted to show this, and I've actually already made it into a bit of a hat. But this is the coral fern, CORAL. It's in the barrier reef coral, but coral fern. And we know that this plant, that insects don't like this plant. So what I've done here is I've made a little hat.
You're getting some looks before when you're down at the beach.
So I got a couple of questions asked to me too. But so the hat, keeping the flies off us, you know. The non-Aboriginal Aussie equivalent is the hat with all the poppers on it, all the little corks. Yeah, but this is much easier to make, cheaper, and probably better because the flies just don't come nowhere near.
Some insecticide on it, really, isn't it?
Exactly right. So when we camp, we'll grab this coral fern. It's found in very moist areas. You'll see it on the side of the highway sometimes in that dip where the water sits. You'll see the coral fern, but the mozzies don't like it. The insects don't like it. So we tie all this around our tents and around our camping area where we camp.
You told me before that you lined your baby's beds with it as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Off the bubbers.
Yeah, so that's an important one for us, especially on the coast. And I've just got one other to show you. Looking at the weather's got at it, the heat's got at it a bit, but that's the bracken fern. You know, very common in all the bush around Sydney and New South Wales, different parts of Australia. Bracken fern is a plant that we use as a medicine, and it's if you get stung, bitten by mosquitoes, blue bottle, any insects, even stinging nettle, you use the bracken fern to ease the pain of the sting. And what you've got to do, you actually have to have the green part, and it's the sap of the plant, or it's the newly, now this is a bit sad looking, but it's the newly unfurled leaves, and they're full of sap.
See it glistening there already.
Yeah, and then that's the stuff that you've got to rub onto your sting.
So it's stingos.
Yeah, so it's like stingos, yes.
That's pretty cheap as well.
And that's exactly, yeah. But it works really well, it does. They're just two plants that are common in the area that Aboriginal people use, and a lot of us still use today.
Mate, I've got some
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, sorry, go on.
I noticed, would there be an opportunity for questions soon?
Sure, let's go.
Yep.
Okay, so I've got a question. This is it's about the names of the Aboriginal groups that lived in Coogee. Do you know the names of the group, the mob that lived in Coogee, and the name? Was there an Indigenous name for Wedding Cake Island? There's from Angie.
Look, that's a great question, Angie, and I'm not too sure about the question about the island, whether there was a name. We haven't found one. And look, I know the local people here, and there's not. Well, we haven't come across one yet. The other, in terms of the people of this area, there's, like in a lot of things, because of history, there's some conjecture about the names, and more recently, the local people are calling it the Bidjigal area or the Bidjigal people. If you look through our historical records, you might come across another name that might be different. But yeah, and that, like I say, there's still, unfortunately, because of the history and what's happened to the people of Sydney, some of that, there's still some unsurety about the names. But yeah, but certainly Bidjigal is being used more recently.
The British did use a system of divide and conquer as well.
Yeah,
so
that didn't help.
Yeah.
that didn't help at all. But
And what about the Coogee name, the Aboriginal name for Coogee?
Oh well, yeah, I do know that Coogee, and look at the pronunciation might be a little bit off, we think, but Coogee from the local language means smelly, and that's to do with the seaweed. Yeah, and like a lot of places, the environment sometimes gave way to the name of the place. So Coogee was the smelly place.
Okay.
And that's about the seaweed, the drying seaweed, as we all know how bad it can smell if it's been sitting there for a few weeks.
what's Cronulla's pink shells, eh?
Yeah, that's right. Cronulla had these unusual coloured shells, and that's where the name come from Cronulla. Yeah, so
most of the suburbs had a name was related to the land.
Related to the land, yeah. That's usually the case. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, there's plenty. Just one interesting one. Well, they're all fantastic. But is there any truth in the story that the north of Coogee was for men's business and the south was for women's business? Or is that just a rumour? That's from...
Look, I mean, that could be the case. I couldn't tell you. I'm not a direct descendant of the local people here, but I have heard something similar about that. If we look at other areas, yes, that could be a situation where, the men had a certain area that was, the women weren't allowed or wouldn't go to, and equally the women had an area where the men. So that could be true, but I wouldn't like to say yes or no to that answer to that question. Sorry. Yeah.
And
we've got some stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Oh, there's
one more question.
One more question from Ingrid. She's asked, how many Indigenous groups lived in the Coogee area?
You know what? It's interesting. It's an interesting question because some of the more recent literature talks about the number of clans in Sydney, and that's a lot of clans. I know that down the south coast, we have a big area, but we have less number of clans. I think some of that speculation. My feeling is that I suspect that most people would be related in Sydney, one way or the other. You might be living closer to Botany Bay, but I suspect that you have a distant cousin or cousins that are living in Gadigal country in Sydney, and the way our relationships work through our clans, I would say that similarly that would be the case here, that they would nearly all be related, from Penrith all the way back to the coast. We marry outside our family, our immediate family, and we have very specific systems about marriage and skin groups and that sort of thing. And yeah, look, I think there was a number of groups. That's what I'd agree with. But in terms of stating how many, I wouldn't like to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I've read the English try to do a bit of a census early in the piece, and they guessed at roughly about 1,500 people, individual people, at that time, which was pretty much on par with those first 11 ships got off about the same amount of people.
And look, the other point I would have liked to have made, and I've heard this story from up north, that in one area, non-Aboriginal people or a non-Aboriginal person was asked what the name of that area was. That person said a word which wasn't the name of that area, but that area is now called that name. So, and that's the Mile Lakes that I'm talking about. And there's a whole heap of records that talk about that area. Yeah. So, I think we're still finding out. We're still trying to get piece together all that information.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. Sorry, Grant, were you mentioning that area was Giles Bars or Wiley's? Because there was some confusion about that. Where are you standing?
Wiley's.
No, you're.
Yeah, we're standing in Wiley's Bars, the old Wiley. No, we're standing in the old Giles. Sorry,
Giles Bars.
Sorry,
Wiley's
this is
down the other end. Yeah.
Wiley's.
Yeah, Wiley's, and they've kept the fascia of this. This is where we used to enter to go and do our training. I'll just give you a look. So they kept it as a bit of a memorial. So it's well done how they've done it. The Ramsey Council have done really good. Go girls! I've done really good job in regards to keeping our modern and colonial history alive here as well. I've got some more bush tucker. Trev, do you want to have a look at that? We'll just get it there. Because this stuff doesn't grow here too much, and I'll switch it over. You've got some bush tomato there. We'll get into the shade again. But you've got a nice bush tomato there. They would have grown everywhere around here, Trev, yeah?
Oh, absolutely.
It's ground up, actually.
Yeah. I've tasted them straight off the plant. They are very nice. They're more like a fruit rather than a tomato.
Native raisin, aren't they?
Yeah, that's more. Yeah,
that's all we can get is the ground up version.
Yeah.
Get it on the Bush Tucker shop. There's some great flavours there. That included. I've also got the wattle starting to pop as well at the moment, and we'll go and look for a wattle tree. But I think I've got some wattle here. Yeah, Trev, got that. Just have a look. So there's a nice wattle seed. Goes great in bread. It's a protein hit too. It's as much as almonds, which is almonds is the biggest nut with the highest protein. They equal that. So wattle seed goes well in bread. The bush tomato, I meant to say, is great in a spaghetti. So if you want to mix it up, it's got a real hit to it too. So that goes well. I've had Trevor's cousin, who's a chef. He's cooked some great stuff for us, hasn't he, Trev?
Yeah.
So we might just go for a bit of a wander now and get up onto the point here. Just grab our gear and head up. If you've got any questions, we can hit you. You can hit us up. Hit Trevor up now. There we go.
Okay, there's some questions about the lamandra.
Yes.
How do you process the lamandra seed into flour? It's
okay. So the seed has to be. Yep. Yeah. Okay. So the seed has to be a certain. It's actually starting to go off. So it starts to get it's green and then it starts to turn brown. That's the time to pull it off the plant. And then what we do is we crush it up. So we need a good number of seeds because they're only small seeds. You have to crush it up. Then we have to leach the toxins out of it. So what we do, we might wrap it in some seaweed or wrap it in some bark and put it in water and leave it there for a number of hours.
Okay.
And then once the toxins are leached out, that's when we then squash it up all together. It should be hydrated enough to turn into a doughy doughy mixture, and then straight onto the coals.
Fabulous. So what the
There
danga
is another-
bread?
Sorry.
So Bettina and Josh are asking about danga bread. So danga bread.
Yeah, that's it. That's the lamandra.
That's
Look,
the
there is a-
lamandra.
Yeah, but it's also the butterwang too. See the seed, the red seed of the butterwang? Yeah, the same process. Leach the toxins out, make a dough, and then there you've got your damper ready to cook.
Okay. And are they native to this area, the lamandra plants? That's what Hannah's asking.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Look, some of the lamandra plants here would be the original plants that have been here for a long time. There's some really big ones around here. And the butterwang would have been around here. We've got it out at the National Park out at La Perouse, so I would assume that it would have been in plentiful supply here too.
Okay. So thank you. Francine has asked, I'd like to hear a bit more about their houses, the houses in terms of structure and location around these areas.
Yeah, sure. I'll just let me switch over. Just about what sort of houses did you make? They were temporary houses, but you had caves.
Oh, look, yeah, look. Look, most of the structures that Aboriginal people would have made would have been mostly, you know, made out of thick pieces of wood, and of course the branches and leaves of some of the trees. There's a number of caves right along the coastline. Some of them have got some artwork in them. My understanding is, it's all about I guess for us, for Aboriginal people, it would have all been about the weather, the conditions, the direction of the wind. You know, there's lots of places where you can get out of the wind. You know, if we've got southerlies, we know we've got to get on the leeward side. There's lots of little coves and hills that can protect us from you know, the prevailing summer winds from the northeast, and the winter winds from the west and the south. You know, wearing skins as well. But certainly having
the
structures.
sound went Grant then.
Oh, sorry. So, yeah, look, having you know, having the kangaroo skins and possum skins, keeping us warm would have helped as well. But there would have definitely been places, you know, places that Aboriginal people would have went to, depending on the conditions. Like I say, you know, just to get out of the wind, out of the rain, and you know, protection from the elements. So structures built very quickly. You know, they could easily be blown down or you know, get lost in a storm. Easily to fix them up and make them again. And then we've got caves and other little areas of shelter out of the wind. Like I said, for me, it would have depended on the conditions of the day.
Well, Trevor, all these beaches have got gullies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every beach here, the
Yes.
Bronte Gully's magnificent. Tamarama or Gamma Gamma was the name, and it's big storm probably from the waves breaking and echoing up that gully again. But so those gullies would have had lots of little tidy holes and grottos and such, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and look, we know that you know, out at La Perouse, when people, you know, there was lots of shacks. People lived in shacks in the early 1900s and the late 1800s out at La Perouse, and they were usually placed in the lower parts in the gullies and in places that were, you know, were better protected. So you and you know, I guess the other thing is where we set up camp, there's got to be water nearby, you know, so that we can get our drink of water and the little sustenance and graze on the food that's around in the area. Whilst there's no, we won't find any humpies or anything like that these days. They would have been knocked down a long time ago.
What you call them?
Humpies.
What else?
Yeah. Or I'm just trying to think what. Yeah, there was a couple of names that we had for those sort of.
Yeah, Humpy's the main one.
Humpy's the main one though that gets used. Yeah.
But just while we're up here, I don't know how clear this footage is, but it's the most magnificent day today. Just looking back on this magnificent beach, and you can see we're going back over to the Oval. There wouldn't have been any of those any Norfolk Island pines, they're all introduced. But you can see how high it is up towards the hospital up the back there as well.
And there is some big old trees. If you're in the area, there are some big old eucalypts that have got to be hundreds of years old. You know, there's some big trees still there that, you know, if they could talk, they could tell us a story too, I'm sure.
We might answer some more questions, and I will just head up to Bombora Point, where we can see the boys surfing down there. So we'll just head up.
So one of the questions was around that. Christina's asked about, so what happened to those local families? Did they move to other places? And or they stayed and lived and worked in the area? And also, did anybody actually stay on Wedding Cake Island? Were there any Aboriginal groups on Wedding Cake Island?
Look, I'll start with Wedding Cake Island because probably that's the quickest answer and no, I'm not too sure about that. We know that the Aboriginal people had canoes in this area. I suspect that on the right day with the right conditions, they would have ventured out and fished around. Like I said before, in the shallows out on Wedding Cake would have been a great spot to go around and collect food, shellfish, and probably spear as well in those shallow waters out there.
A lot of abalone too, wasn't there?
Yeah, there would have been abalone galore and conchs and periwinkles and
nice,
all those shellfish that we know that are from this area.
I read an account of young Indigenous boys catching 6-foot breakers in their canoes in Bondi. When the Colonials watched them, they were horrified, thought they were meant for certain death, but they were amazed at their dexterity and courage. I can still remember the terms. So they would have been fearless, and they would have been perfect seafaring young men as well, and not scared of the swell. Trevor's a bit of a surfer. He's not scared of the swell either.
No, I've dived too. I've dived for abalone. But yeah, and sorry, what was the first? Oh, God, lost the first part of that question again.
It was about so where did the Aboriginal groups go? Did they stay and live there? Work
look,
there?
my understanding. Yeah, sorry. My understanding is that when the ships came into Sydney Harbour in the preceding weeks, and this was partly due to the diseases that Aboriginal people were starting to get. They were starting to get sick in Sydney. So I've been told that a lot of our families went south. You know, that's the natural connection, I believe, with the way the clans are set up. So it's probably easier to go south than it is to go north. So that's what I have been told. I believe that that's what's happened. A lot of families just left and went south. Okay. You know, we know that Aboriginal people got moved out, or when the Aboriginal people in the late 1800s started to be in numbers in the Sydney area, they moved the bulk of them out to La Perouse.
Yeah, because there were a lot, so a big group was living on Bennelong Point at one stage.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and that was the seafaring area, so they wanted to clear that of all the people and just continue with mercantile commerce there. Yeah, we can just have a look at.
What question was about? What's a humpy?
Well, that's a shelter. It's a shelter for the word that we use for shelter.
Yeah.
So like a lean-to and a teepee almost.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
I've seen your cousin and that build them. They're fantastic. And you use a lot of that coral fern in there to keep it mozzie free.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Pretty basic, you know. Just some big thicker branches covered over, you know, set together and covered over with some other palm-like leaves or branches.
You can see here, guys. We had a bit of rain recently. This is all the water's leaching through this sandstone, so you can see how the sandstone acts as a filter, doesn't it?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Cleans it, and it's creating ochre, really, isn't it?
That's correct.
That's where you sort of see the ochre. Now we're just going to head over to this point here. I'm not sure the correct point, the name of it, but we call it the Bommy. And the boys are out there surfing at the moment. And the Bombora is a reef, yeah, Trev?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, so you'll hear the surfers say they're going surfing on the bommy. Well, that's a bommy. It's a Bombora. And there's boys out on Wedding Cake Island as well. They called it wedding cake because it was covered in guano, in birds' feces. So it was white topped. And another option was that it was the white waves breaking. But like Trevor said, there's so many options here of how things were named. They've been lost in time, you know. We got any more questions for Trev? While we're up here on a good spot here.
We've got, so
I'll turn it around.
Well, go back to that ochre. So the ochre's made from, can you just recap on what the ochre's made for? And do you put the ochre in your hair? Ava's asking. Or why did you apply some? Why did you apply the ochre to your hair? Why?
Why? Look, it's a traditional practice, you know, something that's been resurrected more recently for Aboriginal people. You know, there was a time when we weren't allowed to practice our culture in this country, when they put our families on reserves and such. So it's about it's you know, it's for ceremony, as I said, but it's about honouring our culture too. I guess there's an element of that in it. There's also the element of, you know, being one with the land. You know, we come from the land, we wear the land. That sort of way of thinking. But certainly for special occasions, you know, even for hunting, we might put ochre on, as I might have mentioned earlier. You know, and it actually, you know, stops the smell, and it stops you from getting sunburnt, and it stops you from getting bitten, and it stops you from getting stung while you're you know, going through the bush, that sort of thing. Right. But yeah, certainly for ceremony, and we will have certain ways of painting our clans up, you know, that represents our people. And I know, you know, like our people on the south will have a different design on their face and on their arms and body compared to, say, our people up on the north.
And you'd be able to know who's who, wouldn't you?
And that's right. You can tell people by the designs on their ochre designs on their skin.
Great. So Charlie's asking, did the local people here wear possum skin cloaks in winter or for ceremony, or was that for further south, down south?
Given what we know about the winter temperatures here, and even going further north, I suspect that yes, they would have been wearing maybe multiple cloaks at different times. But yes, certainly, you know, kangaroo skin, possum skin. I know that our people up north, around around Nambucca, Coffs Harbour, there's pictures of them, of our traditional people with cloaks on. So.
Possum skin's waterproof too, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the other part of it. Yeah.
Fantastic.
They make a good Ugg boot too.
Yeah, they are very warm, I tell you now.
So Grant and Uncle Trevor, we've got 2 minutes left.
Oh, is that on?
Yeah, what I'm suggesting though is that I might just, if people do want to leave now that they can, I'm just going to share with them some concluding slides, and then we can carry on. And if people want to stay on, then perfectly happy for that.
Yeah, we're going to go sit under a tree. Yeah, we're going to sit under a tree.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I could hear, you could hear Trevor puffing, couldn't you, walking up this hill? He's not as fit as he was when he was playing with Randwick first grade.
Okay,
and he was a back too. He was a back too, not a forward.
Natalia, I'm just sharing this slide. So hi everybody. This is a fantastic tour. Thank you so much, Trevor and Uncle Trevor and Grant. I'll just conclude, and then we can come back to them if you want to stay on. I'm conscious that we dedicated an hour for this, and that there's lots and lots to learn, lots to hear. So I just want to thank you. There's some programs so this program is, this week is the Coastal Protection Week of our Eco Living Festival, and just wanted to let you know that we've got some amazing programs happening at council. If you want to take some action on the environment and join in our programs, that we have fogoing, well, that's a new word, FOGO like a pro. So, and you can join our permabees or bush care and plant with us, which will happen again when we are allowed to start gathering outdoors in bigger groups. And also Randwick Council has sustainability rebates if you wanted to look into those. Yes, and also we would love to hear your feedback. So please complete the short survey. There's the QR code there. Natalia's going to put the link to the survey in the chat, and also we will be sending an email directly after this session so that you can provide some feedback. We would really appreciate that. All right, well, thank you. And if everybody has to leave, then thank you for joining us. If you want to stay on, absolutely, we'll spend some more time listening to this amazing presentation. Okay, over to you.
We're back on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Any more questions? We're sitting here nicely perched under a tree for Trev. I've got his sitting down now. He's getting a bit old, so we better get him off his feet.
Oh, we've got lots of questions.
I'll let him hit him with
Okay.
it. He's got to earn his money.
Okay, so there's a question about Banksia. Richard's asked, is the Banksia used for medicinal purposes?
That's a good question. I'm not aware of any medicinal values of the Banksia, but I don't claim to know everything either. So I know that the Banksia for our people would have been, actually I've heard them use the cob as a comb. I've heard that being used, the Banksia cob, and I've also heard of the Banksia being dipped in water and flavouring water, just to give you a different taste.
Like a cordial, yeah.
Yeah, like a cordial sort of. Yeah, and you know, sarsaparilla is another plant, the bush sarsaparilla that Aboriginal people used a lot to flavour the water.
Is the Banksia any good for tool making, hardwood?
Oh, look, I think I think the Banksia, you know, for things like woomeras and other Aboriginal tools, there would have been a fantastic wood because it's so hard.
Okay. Question from Thomas. Port Jackson fig trees, are they significant to the locals?
Port Jackson
fig
tree.
They're local. Yeah, you can eat those.
That's the you know, we know, well, everyone knows the Moreton Bay fig better than the Sydney fig. You know, our fig's got a smaller seed and a smaller fruit on it than the Moreton Bay fig, but at the same time, you know, it's plentiful. It was plentiful in the area, and a good source of food for Aboriginal people.
Oh,
yeah,
nice and dry. It's a dry little fig.
Yeah.
Don't be scared to have a try of them.
Right. While we're on food, Angie's asked, where can you buy bush tomatoes? I mean, or can you find them out there? It's that the Grant mentioned somewhere.
I got them on the Bush Tucker Shop website. They're fantastic. You can buy jams. You can buy the wattle seed. You can get everything there. They make a great pack for anyone sending gifts overseas. To try and I tried to grow them and propagate. I had real trouble with them. They've got to be in, like, the land's got to be burnt, and they've got to be in sort of ash, like that potash sort of soil. Sandy soil. I've had trouble. I couldn't grow them, but I'm sure they're available at. I think there's a Randwick Council nursery there in Baker Street, Kingsford. They do a lot of stuff there, so I wouldn't be surprised if they've got them there. You know?
Look, I haven't seen that plant in Sydney. Not that I've been through every track or every piece of bush in Sydney. I've been over the National Park in Ku-ring-gai. My cousin who's over Ku-ring-gai he'd probably know more. But the place that I have seen them is down the south coast, as far down as actually the first plant, and probably the only couple of plants that I've seen have been down around Badalla, Narooma, Bateman's Bay area, and they're not plentiful either. They're fairly sparse down there.
So the ones I got were from the Central Australia, so they're being farmed there, but they're extremely expensive. It's dearer than lobster, twice the price of lobster per 100 grams, and abalone. So and the wattle seed's the same. But it's great stuff, and it's different.
Yeah.
And the rest of the world's discovered the new flavours. Humans have pretty much eaten everything on the planet except our bush tucker. So it's starting to get the rest of the world having a look at it. Yeah.
Okay, question from Dennis. Are there songlines in Sydney coastal areas?
Look, I suspect that there's song lines through every tract of land on this country. And so the answer is yes. Whether they are intact is still questionable.
This was first contact land, and it was the first to be under the screws of the English. So a lot of the Indigenous knowledge was lost from around these areas, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I know, for example, the story about the whale and the starfish, that's a story that everyone from Sydney down to the Victorian border, all our communities know it, and might know a slightly different version. But, that's sort of an example of I wouldn't say song lines, but just knowledge lines that we have, or, story lines that we have that are, and that story's still intact today. But, a great deal of that's not, unfortunately.
Yeah. Do you know, Cleo wants to ask to know that there's about the coastal hibiscus, that the council plants heaps of coastal hibiscus. Is it local or native to this area?
A lot of it's washed in too.
Yeah, that's right.
It's the same as a warrigal green, and that the Tasman Sea exchange, isn't it? Too.
Yeah.
They exchange from all around the Pacific floating in.
Yeah.
So
you'll be lucky to find a hibiscus in the national park over at Royal National Park. I'd love someone to prove me wrong, but that's my understanding that that it's not plentiful, and which suggests it may not be it may not have ever been plentiful in this area. Yeah, but I don't see a lot of it down south either.
Marina's asking, what was the philosophy on maintaining the flora and fauna to ensure it was regenerating and plentiful?
Oh, look, I think one of the main philosophies, and we've got a whale out here.
Oh, he's got a big whale breaching.
Wow.
He's got the best eyes, Trevor. He's here answering questions, spotting whales breaching. But they're on their return, yeah? They're coming back by now?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Look, one of the key themes or basic tenets, whatever you want to call it, for our community, when it comes to the plants and the animals, is that we're all on equal standing. No person is above a plant. No animal is above a person. No, we're not above. They have equal rights to the land, and including the plants. They sustain us. So it's important that we maintain, the plants, the flora and fauna, so that we're to sustain ourselves. So that's a key operative of Aboriginal existence, is to maintaining the land so the land can feed us and sustain us. That's the number one rule, I guess.
I've heard your cousin say we offer nothing.
Yeah, that's right.
Humans just take. We give
yeah, that's right. We give them nothing, and we take off the plants, off the flora and fauna. So it's important for us to maintain that, And I can see, we're seeing what's happening with our world and with our planet and our country now. And if we don't look after the animals and the plants, well, we all know what's gonna happen, don't we? So
Yeah.
that is the main thing for our people, is to, we feel a responsibility to the plants and the animals to maintain them, and when we see things that are happening in our country where, forests being destroyed, our animals being killed, pests being brought in and taking over from our natives, that sort of thing.
Those bushfires are a result of human intervention as well.
Well, lack of intervention.
That's right.
Yeah. And, that's hurtful. That's a painful thing for Aboriginal people to experience, because that's like losing, that's like losing family, if we lose if we lose, if our animals go extinct, well then, that means, what worth are we? We're worthless too if we can't maintain the animals, because then we can't maintain ourselves.
And just before you go, I got to give myself a plug. I write historical fiction. I've got 4 books available on Amazon. I've included all my Koori mates in the books, and a lot of my history is based on early contact with Polynesia and Australia. So if you're in for a historical read, a little bit violent, but that's all right. Have a look for Grand Hyde on Amazon. Any other questions there, guys?
Well, I think so. We're not going to get round to Clovelly, but yeah, it's been absolutely fantastic. There was just a question about how we can learn more about our Indigenous culture. Are there groups that we can join in the area?
Make friends with Aboriginal people.
Oh, beautiful. That's
Yeah.
so true.
Yeah. Now, look, you'll find the majority of Aboriginal people are just so willing to share their culture, their story. We want Australians. We want all Australians to have the same culture as us. We want everyone to look after the land as well. And look after our families and our friends and animals. And it's the same. We want the same for everyone that's living here now. And I tell people, they say to me, "Oh, well, Aboriginal people call themselves custodians or whatever." Well, I think we're all custodians now, and we've all got a responsibility. We're all exactly, yeah, And my hope is that we'll be all doing corroborees at some stage.
Oh,
So, is there any groups you can sort of look up and join? And it's mainly restricted to Indigenous boys and girls, isn't it? But if you come on these sort of tours and things, if you find tours, Blue Mountains, there's a good one, the Guringai tours up in Guringai National Park with Laurie Bimson, and there's some good stuff around.
Yeah, look, and there's lots of things happening. Which is really exciting for me. That businesses, tourist businesses, are popping up all over the country. Managed and run by Aboriginal people, cultural tours, those sorts of things. That's. And you're going to hear different stories wherever you go, and I think that's one good way of giving back to Aboriginal people is paying for a tour that's run and managed by the local community, and any museums or any Aboriginal services that you might be able to access while you're on holidays or wherever you are.
And if you're involved with schools, they're available as well to have them come in, do the schools, come and do tours.
Yeah.
Like this. We do the schools as well. I'll do the Colonial and stuff. And Trevor comes along. I've got some other great guides that do some great stuff as well. And they can learn about Indigenous culture and bush tucker and
Absolutely.
And how it changed with the arrival of the white man as well. So there's lots of stuff. Geez, that whale's playing out there, isn't he? There's a whale. He's flapping around. He's got his tail out. They're heading back now. Are they heading back from Queensland, roughly?
Going south, yes.
Yeah, they're heading south with their babies now. They've had their babies up in the warm water and they're heading back to Antarctica. But
right.
One more question. We've got one more. Trevor's got to go back to work. But
yeah, we're there. Well, it's actually interesting. Murray's asked, you're very close to Bora ground. Any comments?
Bora ground.
I'm worried. That question worries me.
Oh.
No. Look, I'm sure there's lots of Bora rings that we're not aware of right throughout Sydney. Usually, I get a tingle on my neck if I'm close to those sorts of things, but sometimes it doesn't happen. Look, I guess if we are close to a Bora ground, well then, we acknowledge it and we pay our respects, to the local people and try and look after that.
Can you explain that just quickly, Bora?
But the Bora ground is a place where we have important ceremonies. Usually it's a circular ground. It's in a circle and they call them Bora rings. Yeah, but there's certain as a place for very some of our more serious ceremonies. Yeah, in more important ceremonies.
You spooked him then, Murray. I felt the seat trembling. Maybe one more and we could.
But I wouldn't like to. Yeah, I'd hate to think that I'm walking over the top of the foreground without.
Now,
without
Hans has asked, are there any current streets or paths where Aboriginal tracks were?
Well,
sorry.
Well, I've read that every main road we use was actually was once an Aboriginal beat.
Yeah.
Because they followed the ridges and they followed away from the water and out of the gullies and keeping high out of the mosquitoes.
Yeah. I don't know whether it's Pitt or George. I think one of them is a track or was a track. Pitt Street or George Street in the city.
I know Dolphin Street had a stream running down.
Anzac Parade's a track.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even before, even
too,
when horse and carts used to go on that track around Moore Park and the area there, the bush. I think there's some pictures of those bush tracks or those tracks.
You just didn't have one track though. You had 1,000
absolutely
snaking off from each of them. They weren't big, well-worn tracks, were they?
No, not always.
They maybe one major one, but yeah, from what you've told me, there was tracks everywhere.
That's right. Yeah.
Had access to the whole land, didn't you?
Yeah.
It wasn't cluttered bush. It was managed bush. So the bush we see now is not what it was.
Yeah.
Is that right? Isn't it?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, we've had some fantastic responses. Thank you so much for a fantastic tour.
Trevor was great. You were great, Trev.
Oh, I'm worried. I was worried.
No, it's just a casual chat between the two of us, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's always a pleasure to have a yarn and walk around, especially this place. Have a look at it.
Place. Yeah.
Look where we are. So great stuff. Thanks, guys, for tuning in.
Yes, well done. Again, there's lots of positive comments for both of you. And Trevor, you're very, very well received. Everybody just loved you. So well done. We will, I'm sure, have you again. And there was lots of thanks to your stories. It was really interesting and had lots more questions that we can't get through. So we'll tell them to come along to all the tours that you will be doing it again live.
Thank you.
A beautiful day.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Send us some
thank
feedback.
you. Can we see the whale? Somebody else.
Yeah, I can see the whale. Yeah.
I'm going to flick it around.
Can you show it to us?
Zoom it in.
No, we can't zoom. You'll see him. He's just out there. You can. He's been moving. He's been flapping around.
Left of that boat.
He's just near that boat. He's to the left of that boat. Can you see the boat? Oh, yeah. See him break water then.
Can we zoom?
Oh, vaguely.
Can we zoom in?
So hopefully, whoever asked for that will be very happy to see some of us see, because we even have international people from all over the world here today. So hopefully,
there.
So there's the boat there. You see that boat? It's just near the boat. I got it. Yeah, we won't have to wait. He's going to come up again. Yeah, there it is. It just bounced.
Wow.
Yeah. And he's out. You can see his humpback. It must be a humpback. And he's a big boy. He's playing out there. He's sat out there for a while now. Yeah. You're still filming this, I hope.
We do.
Yeah, he's coming out again. Is it zoomed in enough? We're trying. Oh, there it is. There he comes. There he goes again. Yeah. He's a playful one. It's be a humpback, Trev, do you reckon? What do you reckon?
Yeah.
A humpback?
Yeah.
You can see he's back. Yeah, he's a big fella.
He's got the baby.
Oh, look at he is there.
She's got the baby with him.
Oh, she's got a baby. So she's had you can see the small spout going up, can't you?
Yes.
The baby's spout.
There's the big one.
There it is. There's the big one again.
See two of them?
Yeah, there's two of them. Yeah. Wow. Good stuff.
Well, I'm sure people will say that this is good. They get more than they ask for. So all the best. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.